galactic empire stretched across thousands of star systems. It was proud, ancient, and feared by almost every known civilization in the galaxy. Its fleets darkened skies, its banners covered worlds, and its emperor was treated almost like a god. For centuries, no new species had dared to laugh in front of him. That was about to change. When the scouts of the Empire first discovered the humans of Earth, they thought they had found another primitive species ready to kneel. The humans had small ships, unarmored bodies, and no psionic abilities. The Empire's officials smiled to themselves. This would be an easy addition to their glorious dominion. The Emperor ordered a grand welcoming event to show the new species the power and grace of the Empire. The plan was simple: impress them, intimidate them, and make them submit without resistance. Alien dignitaries from across the stars came to witness it. The hall was enormous, shining with golden walls, giant pillars, and banners of every conquered world. And then the humans arrived. Their ship was small and plain compared to the Empire's silver cruisers. It landed without fanfare, carrying only a few representatives: 2 diplomats, 1 scientist, 1 soldier, and 1 engineer. They stepped out calmly, wearing light suits instead of armor. No fear showed in their eyes, the crowd of aliens whispered. Many expected the humans to bow at once before the Emperor's throne, but they didn't. They just stood there, quietly looking around the hall as if visiting a museum. The Emperor, dressed in a robe of shining crystal threads, spoke in a deep and commanding voice. "Welcome, children of Earth. You stand before the great Empire, the oldest and most powerful rule in this galaxy. Be honored, for few are allowed such an audience." The humans looked at each other. Their leader, a middle-aged man named Captain Lewis, nodded politely. "Thank you for the welcome, Your Majesty." The Emperor smiled with satisfaction. "I am sure you understand the importance of joining the Empire. Many civilizations dream of this honor." Then the Emperor raised his arms and continued his long, formal speech. He spoke of the Empire's victories, its power, its control over 1,000 worlds. He listed the names of noble houses, fleets, and legions. Every sentence was meant to impress and awe. When he finally declared, "You now stand before the greatest empire in the galaxy," he paused, waiting for applause, awe, or at least silence of respect. Instead, the humans started laughing. It began with the engineer, who tried to hide it behind his hand. Then the soldier joined in, and soon all 5 were laughing, not rudely, but like people who had just heard a joke that was too good to keep inside. The Emperor froze. The entire court went silent. The alien nobles exchanged nervous glances. No one had ever laughed in the Emperor's presence, not in 1,000 years. "What?" the Emperor said slowly. "Is so amusing?" Captain Lewis caught his breath, still smiling. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. It's just, you called your empire the greatest in the galaxy. We've heard that before." The court gasped. The Emperor frowned. "Before?" Lewis nodded. "Yes, on our world we had many empires too. Some called themselves eternal. Some called themselves the greatest. None lasted." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "You mock us?" Lewis raised his hands in peace. "Not at all. We simply find it funny because we used to think the same way. Every time one human empire fell, another rose. And every time we learned something new." The alien nobles whispered among themselves. To them, humans sounded arrogant, but there was something strange in their tone. It wasn't pride. It was experience. The Emperor leaned forward. "You speak as though you have seen much conflict." Lewis smiled faintly. "We have. Our species grew up fighting, not because we loved war, but because we kept trying to build something better. We fought kings, tyrants, and sometimes each other. And somehow we survived. We laughed at our mistakes and tried again." The Emperor studied them quietly. He had met thousands of species. Most of them feared him. But these humans were different. They were calm, almost casual. There was no arrogance in their posture, just confidence born of hard lessons. An alien noble, a tall creature covered in scales, whispered loudly, "They mock the Emperor. They should be punished." Lewis turned his head toward the noble and smiled. "No, friend. We're not mocking. We just see patterns. Empires rise, fall, and rise again. It's the way of things." The laughter? "It's how we survive the madness." The Emperor raised a hand, silencing the noble. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't known in decades: curiosity. "You say you have seen many empires rise and fall. Tell me, human, what makes yours different?" Lewis chuckled softly. "We stopped believing in forever. We build, fail, and rebuild. We know that power never lasts, so we try to make each version better than the last. The Emperor leaned back. And you find that amusing? Louis grinned. If we didn't laugh, Your Majesty, we'd cry. For a long moment, the Emperor said nothing. The Golden Hall was silent. Then, surprisingly, a small sound came from the Emperor himself. A single dry chuckle. The court was stunned. The Emperor never laughed. You are strange creatures, he said finally. You laugh in the face of power. You speak of failure as if it were a teacher. That's exactly what it is, said the scientist, a woman named Dr. Hera. Failure teaches faster than victory. We just learn to live with it. The Emperor's expression softened slightly. Perhaps your people have wisdom even if your manners are lacking. Louis bowed slightly. We'll take that as a compliment, Your Majesty. Some of the alien nobles hissed in disbelief, but others began to whisper in awe. They could feel something shifting. The humans had not come to kneel or conquer. They had come to share, and that was more frightening than any weapon. The Emperor looked down at the humans again. If your laughter hides truth, then show me this human strength. Words are easy. Deeds are not. Louis met his gaze. Fair enough. Show us something you struggle with. A challenge your empire cannot solve. Maybe we can help. The Emperor raised an eyebrow. You would help the Empire? We came here to make friends, not enemies. Louis said simply. If we can prove that our way works, maybe you'll understand why we laugh. The Emperor studied him carefully, then smiled faintly. Very well. You wish for a test? I shall give you one. On the frontier world of Zathra, a rebellion has raged for years. Our armies have power but no peace. If your kind can succeed where my legions have failed, I will listen. Louis nodded. Deal. The Emperor gestured to one of his generals. Prepare a transport ship for our guests. Let them see the truth of war. Let them see that laughter cannot conquer rebellion. As the humans were escorted from the throne room, alien eyes followed them, some with anger, others with curiosity. The humans walked calmly, still smiling. The soldier leaned toward Louis and whispered, We just laughed in the face of an empire. Louis chuckled. Yeah, let's hope they don't forget it too soon. When they reached their quarters aboard the Imperial flagship, Dr. Hera turned serious. Do you think we went too far? Laughing like that? Louis sat down and looked out at the stars. Maybe, but sometimes laughter is the best way to show you're not afraid. They expected submission. We gave them humanity. The engineer, a young man named Patel, grinned.
Think the Emperor will take the challenge seriously?
Oh, he'll take it seriously, Louis said. He just doesn't realize that the real lesson isn't about war. It's about perspective. The ship engines rumbled beneath their feet. Outside the viewport, the Empire's massive fleets moved like glittering rivers of metal. Somewhere on the horizon, the world of Zathra awaited, full of unrest and opportunity. Louis watched the stars and smiled again. Let's show them why humans laugh when others tremble. The other humans nodded. They didn't have fleets or empires, but they carried something older, a spirit that refused to break. And wherever that spirit went, change followed. Far behind them in his grand throne room, the Emperor sat in silence. He thought about the strange visitors who dared to laugh at his power. For the first time in centuries, he didn't feel insulted. He felt curious. He whispered to himself, What kind of people laugh at an empire? The sound of his quiet laughter echoed softly through the Golden Hall, and no one dared to. The Imperial transport ship cut through the void, leaving trails of blue light behind. Inside, the humans sat in silence, watching the stars drift past. They were being escorted to Zathra, a frontier world that had been burning with rebellion for 10 years. The Empire had tried everything, armies, weapons, and fear. Nothing worked. Captain Louis leaned back in his seat and glanced at his team. Remember, he said, we're not here to fight their war. We're here to show them another way. The soldier, Ramirez, nodded. If they let us. Dr. Hera smiled slightly. They will. Curiosity is stronger than pride. Even emperors can't resist it. When they landed, the humans stepped out onto a planet scarred by conflict. The air smelled of metal and smoke. Above them, the sun was dim behind clouds of dust. Alien soldiers in shining armor watched as they arrived, their weapons ready. The human delegation was escorted to a command tent where the Empire's general, a massive insectoid alien named Kravath, awaited them. Kravath towered over them. So, he said with a deep hiss. You are the laughing creatures who dared to mock the Emperor. Lewis smiled calmly. We prefer to call it sharing perspective. Krivoth didn't laugh. The Emperor believes you can solve this war better than our legions. I doubt it. The rebels are cowards who hide in caves. They refuse to submit. Lewis looked around the map projected in the air. You've been fighting them for a decade? Yes, the general said proudly. We have crushed their armies many times, but they keep returning. Then maybe you're fighting the wrong war, Lewis said softly. Krivoth tilted his head. There is only one kind of war, victory and defeat. Lewis shook his head. No, there's also understanding. If you never ask why they fight, you'll never stop them. Krivoth snorted. You think words will win? No, Lewis said. But they can stop the need for bullets. The general growled but said nothing more. He assigned them a small hovercraft and a squad of soldiers to escort them to the war front. The humans loaded their small equipment, scanners, drones, and a portable translator array. Within hours, they were flying over burnt forests and ruined cities. Down below, the humans saw villages, small clusters of huts where both rebels and civilians lived together. None of them looked like the bloodthirsty monsters the Empire described. They looked tired, scared, hungry. Dr. Hera pointed. They're not soldiers. They're survivors. Ramirez frowned. And the Empire's been bombing them for years? Lewis nodded. That's what happens when fear rules instead of reason. They landed near one of the villages. Imperial soldiers surrounded the area, nervous and alert. When the humans stepped forward, the rebels came out of hiding. Thin, ragged beings with glowing yellow eyes. The humans raised their hands to show peace. One of the rebels, an older alien with scarred skin, shouted, Why have you come? To burn more homes? Lewis smiled gently. No, we're humans. We came to listen. The rebel blinked. Listen? Yes, we heard there's been fighting for many years. We want to understand why. The rebels looked at one another, confused. No one had ever asked them that before. Slowly, the older one stepped forward. We fight because the Empire took our rivers, our lands. They tax our food. We begged for fairness. They sent armies instead, Lewis nodded. So it's not about power. It's about survival. The rebel lowered his weapon. You believe us? Lewis smiled. Of course. Where we come from, we've fought for freedom too. We learned that peace doesn't come from fear. The conversation lasted for hours. The humans listened to the rebels' stories, took notes, and offered small pieces of advice. How to negotiate, how to communicate through neutral channels. When they returned to the Empire's camp that night, General Krivoth was waiting, furious. You spoke to them? He shouted. That is treason. Lewis stood firm. No, it's logic. You've been killing your own chance for peace. Krivoth's mandibles clicked angrily. You insult the Empire. Lewis sighed. Maybe someone needs to. The general raised his claw, but before he could speak further, a message arrived from the Emperor himself. The Emperor wanted daily updates. He was watching every move. Krivoth growled and turned away. Fine. Do your listening. But when they betray you, do not expect my soldiers to save you. Over the next few days, the humans visited more villages. They talked to both sides, rebels and Imperial commanders. They didn't give orders or threats. They asked questions. And slowly, things began to change. The rebels started to lower their weapons. Imperial soldiers stopped attacking without orders. Dr. Hera helped build small water filters for the villages. Ramirez taught both sides how to build defensive shelters together against dust storms. For the first time in years, there was silence instead of gunfire. News spread quickly. The laughing humans were changing the battlefield without shooting a single bullet. Even General Krivoth was forced to notice. He called Lewis one evening and said, You confuse my soldiers. They no longer wish to fight, Lewis smiled. Good. Maybe now they'll start thinking. Krivoth stared at him for a long moment. Then, to everyone's shock, the alien general made a sound and made a rough, low laugh. You humans. You are dangerous in ways I do not understand. Lewis chuckled. We get that a lot. Days turned into weeks. Eventually, the humans arranged a meeting between the rebel leaders and the Empire's regional governors. The atmosphere was tense at first, but the humans kept the conversation calm and honest. There were no grand speeches, no threats, just questions, and a shared desire to stop the endless suffering. After long hours, both sides agreed to a truce. For the first time in a decade, the skies above Zathra were quiet. When word reached the Emperor, he didn't believe it at first. Peace without victory? He said in disbelief. Yes, Your Majesty, said his advisor. The humans ended the war. They say both sides now trade food and medicine. The Emperor leaned back in his throne. Without fear, without force, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he whispered, "Bring them home." A few days later, the humans were back on the imperial capital world. This time, the throne room was not filled with laughter. It was filled with wonder. Every noble, every general, and every courtier wanted to see the creatures who had stopped a war with nothing but words and smiles. The Emperor stood as they entered. "You have done what I thought impossible. Tell me, human, how?" Louis bowed slightly. "We didn't do anything special. We just stopped treating war like a game to win." The Emperor frowned. "You speak in riddles," Louis smiled. "Your empire fights to dominate. Ours learn to survive. There's a difference. You build monuments to power. We build lessons from mistakes." The Emperor considered his words. "And yet you laughed at us." "Yes," Louis said, still smiling. "Because we saw ourselves in you. Long ago, humanity believed it could control everything. Land, people, even nature. We built empires too, and they all fell. But we learned something each time. No rule lasts forever. So now, when we see someone make the same mistake, we can't help but laugh. It's not mockery. It's recognition." For a moment, the Emperor said nothing. Then he began to laugh, softly, then louder. The sound echoed through the hall, shocking everyone. "You are bold," he said between laughs. "Bold and foolish. And yet perhaps wise." Louis smiled. "Maybe just human." The Emperor looked at him with respect. "You have changed something in me." "I have ruled with fear for too long. Perhaps it is time to rule with wisdom." He turned to the entire court. "Let it be known. The humans of Earth are not subjects. They are guests and teachers. Their laughter has shown us our pride." The hall erupted in murmurs of disbelief, but no one dared to argue. The humans had done what no army could. They had made the Emperor question himself. As they prepared to leave the palace, Dr. Hara whispered, "We actually did it." Louis smiled. "We didn't conquer an empire. We reminded it that it's mortal." Ramirez laughed. "Think the galaxy's ready for more humans?" Louis looked out the window at the stars. "Maybe not, but it'll learn." When their small ship lifted off, the Emperor watched it disappear into the sky. His advisors approached carefully. "Do you truly trust them, Majesty? These humans?" The Emperor smiled faintly. "Trust, no, but I respect them. They reminded me that even empires must learn to laugh." Far away, aboard their ship, the humans shared a quiet moment. Patel leaned back in his seat and said, "It's strange. We didn't fire a single shot." Dr. Hara nodded. "Sometimes peace is louder than war." Louis gazed at the stars, his expression calm. "We didn't win anything today. We just planted a seed. Maybe someday the Empire will understand," Ramirez chuckled. "And when they forget?" Louis grinned. "Then we'll remind them." With a laugh. Their ship drifted into the darkness of space, small and humble among the shining fleets of the galaxy. But somewhere behind them, an empire that once demanded obedience now carried the faint echo of laughter. A reminder that humanity had come, seen and changed everything without raising a weapon. For in the end, it wasn't power that made humanity strong. It was the courage to laugh, even when standing before an empire